Today's shir should be for the full shalema of Rafal B'Tzalel Mordechai ben Chana Rezel, Michal Shlomo ben Michal, Yitzchak Isaac ben Michal, Shlomo ben Elisheva, Yochanan ben Esther, Yosef ben Yael, and Zahava bat Sarah Necha, and also Yosef ben Mazal. And the shir should also be Lilu Nishmat Gershon ben Arieleb, Ephraim ben David, Yosef ben Moshe, Malka Bela bat Shoshana Chava, Yaakov Naftali ben Rachel Devora, Gilad Michael ben Bat Galim, and Eyal ben Iris Teshura. This week's Parsha is Parshat Matot. The previous shiurim, which I urge you to listen to because there's a lot of content on this week's Parsha that I'm not going to go through this week, which are on my previous shiurim. So there are 3 other shiurim on this week's Parsha on TorahAnytime.com. From 3 years ago, there was one called Honestly. From 2 years ago, there's a shiur called Prayer of a Killer. And last year there was a shiur simply called Killers. Okay, they're all on TorahAnytime.com. Check on the latest shiurim or check on my listing, and you should see them there. So I'm not going to mention a huge amount from this week's parasha, but I do want to share a couple of interesting things with you. First of all, I'm going to crave your indulgence, and I'm going to present a little idea, a theory. It's only a theory, but it's just too incredible. If it's true, it's too incredible to leave out. So I'm going to leave it open-ended. I'm going to mention it to you, and I would like anybody who's got any ideas on this theory that I present to you to write to me either via TorahAnytime.com or write to me at my personal email, rabbikelati@gmail.com. Okay, here's the theory. Many of you know that I am Sephardi, but more than that, I'm a Persian, and even more specifically, I happen to be a Mashhadi. Now, those of you who are from New York and from Los Angeles will know what a Mashhadi is. It's a Jew from Mashhad in Iran. And my family had a certain minhag, which my uncle, alav shalom, and my father, if I'm not mistaken, used to have. Certainly my uncle. I'm pretty sure my father used to have this minhag, that before saying the bracha on the bread on Friday night or Shabbat, we didn't just launch into the bracha Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Our family minhag was to say, Mekadesh HaShabbat, Baruch Shomrei HaShabbat, Eini kol alecha zeberu, v'ata noten lehem et ochlam beito, potech et yedecha, u'masbeh l'chol charatzon, noten lechem l'chol basar gidon osdo, and then we say the bracha. But before we say any of this, the first words we would say would be Mekadesh HaShabbat, Baruch Shomrei HaShabbat. Those 2 phrases. However, my uncle, and I suspect my father died 24 years ago, so a lot of it is very hazy, used to add on an additional phrase. They used to add on the phrase Matilei HaShabbat. So it would go like this: Mekadesh HaShabbat, Baruch Shomrei HaShabbat, Matilei HaShabbat. Now, my cousin Freddie and myself both refrained from saying that third phrase, Matilei HaShabbat, because we had no idea what it was. Both independently of each other, we just never said it. I asked him this recently. I said, why don't you say it? He says, well, I don't understand what it means, so I don't say it. And I said, same goes for me. And this had been going on for years. We left out this phrase, and neither of us had any idea what Matilei HaShabbat meant until last week. Now here's where the theory comes in. Pay attention. We came across a Gemara together because Hashem made us learn together. I have a chavruta with my cousin Freddie once a week, and when we're learning together, we came across this Gemara in Shabbat, Daf Kuf Yud Tet Amud Aleph, and it tells the story of a conversation between Caesar, which may not necessarily have been the Caesar that we know, because Caesar is a title, and Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania. So the story goes like this. It's a story about the food that we eat on Shabbat. And the story goes as follows. Omar lo Caesar le Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania. Caesar once said to Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, Mipnei ma tafshil shel Shabbat reicho nodef. Why is it that the food cooked for Shabbat has such an amazing smell? It's incredible. It wafts all over, and it's incredible. I'm sure we know what we're talking about. The Ashkenazim amongst us will talk about their cholent and their kugel and their kishka. The Sephardi amongst us will talk about our mahasha or our kibbeh or cholon chado or choresh, whatever we eat, chobeli. But whatever food we have, we know it's incredible. It has an incredible taste. Amalo, so Rabbi Shua answered back to the Caesar, Tavlin echad yesh lanu v'shabbat shemo. We have this one spice. It's a very special spice, and it's called Shabbat. Sha'anu matilin letocho v'reach nodef, which we throw into the food, and its aroma is incredible. It's an incredible smell, as you just mentioned. So Amar lo, so the Caesar said back to him, Ten lanu, hey menu. He said, give me some of that food. I want to eat that food. Amar lo, Rabbi Shua said back to the Caesar, Kol hamashamer et Shabbat mo'illo. Whoever keeps Shabbat, then for that person will get the benefit from that spice called Shabbat. But for somebody who doesn't keep Shabbat, it's not going to work for him. It's going to taste like regular food. So why am I telling you the story? And what's this got to do with the preparatory prayers that we say before Hamotzi in the Mashali tradition? Because there's a word here in the Gemara which struck a chord, which made me think of the connection. Because it says there, Sha'anu matilin letocho. We have Shabbat, we throw this spice called Shabbat into the Shabbat food. The word matilin comes with the word lahatil, which means to throw. It actually means to lift up, like netilat yadayim. So it means we throw this into the Shabbat food. Now, it occurred to me when I was learning with Freddie, that perhaps this is what our fathers meant when they say matilei haShabbat. We are the ones who are matilin. We are the ones who throw the ta'am, the taste of Shabbat, into our food. And that's why my uncle alav shalom and my father alav shalom used to say matilei haShabbat. The throwers, the ones who throw the Shabbat essence into the food. Could that be? I don't know. It's a theory. I want it to go out there. Anyone who's listening on TorahAnytime.com, you've got a better answer, or you want to validate my answer, or you want to rubbish my answer, that's also good. Please, I urge you, write back to me. And if we get any answers, hopefully, Bezrat Hashem will get some answers. I'd like to share it with the wider community, the worldwide community, or whoever is listening, and get some clarity on it. But I don't have another answer for this. If this is the true answer, this will be amazing. A Persian tradition linking back to the Gemara, that is just beyond words. So let's talk a little bit about the parasha. Now, let's go forward. It's only one parasha we normally say two parashiyot this week of the year, but because we're doing all the parashiyot, double parashiyot separately, we're only going to read the parasha of Matot. So in Parashat Matot, in the beginning, we have the incident with Moshe Rabbeinu, where he got angry. Now, let me give you some background. Moshe Rabbeinu sent an army of hand-picked soldiers to go and fight the Midianites, because the Midianites did something very bad, which we saw in Parashat Pinchas and also at the end of Parashat Balak. They sent their women to come and seduce the Jewish boys, and a lot of people died. 24,000 people died during that terrible incident. So Moshe Rabbeinu instructed these Jewish soldiers to wage war against Midian, and they were successful, thank God. But they came back to Moshe Rabbeinu and said, look, we've kept the Midianite women alive. So the Pasuk says in Perek Chaf Aleph, that's 31, Pasuk, where is it? Pasuk Yud Dalet, which is 14. Vayiktsov Moshe al Pekudei Hechayel. Moshe Rabbeinu was angry at the generals and the captains. V'sarei hamayot ba'im mitzvah milchama, who were the officers coming back from the war. Next pasuk says, Vayomer Elohem Moshe. Moses said to them, Hachayitem kol nekeva. You kept all the women alive? What's the point of doing that? Vayomer Elohem, Heina hayu levnei Israel bidvar Bilam limsar ma'al b'Hashem. These are the ones who came, and they were the ones who seduced the Jewish people through Bilam's dastardly plan. How can you keep them alive? So he got angry with them. And rightly so, because what they did was wrong. So he had every reason to get angry with them. Now, if you look forward to Pasuk 21, Pasuk Kaf Aleph, something very strange happens. Vayomer Elazar HaKohen. And Elazar, who was the son of Aaron, who was a Kohen, a priest, said El Anshei Hatzava, to the soldiers coming back from the war, Habayim HaMilchama, coming back from the war, Zot Chokat HaTorah. This is the statute or the rule of the Torah, Asher Tzava Hashem et Moshe, which God commanded Moses. So Elazar, the son of Aaron, the nephew of Moshe, is coming along, and he's instructing all the soldiers on what Moses said. Well, why didn't Moses say it himself? He had to go and teach Elazar, and Elazar had to go and teach the soldiers. Cut out the middleman. The soldiers should have learned the halachas directly from Moses. The answer is, there was a problem here, because Moshe Rabbeinu forgot the halachot that he was supposed to teach those soldiers. Why did he forget the halachot? Because we are told that somebody who gets angry loses his memory. He forgets halachot. He forgets the law. Now, we just mentioned Moshe Rabbeinu was correct in getting angry at those soldiers because those soldiers were wrong. But Af al Pi Kain, even though he had every right to censure and give tochacha and give rebuke to those soldiers, he was still affected by the anger, and he forgot the halachot. He was literally speechless. So Elazar HaKohen had to go and give over those laws in place of Moshe Rabbeinu. What a frightening thing. What a frightening thing. Now you can turn around and say, did Moses deserve to be punished for forgetting halachot because he got angry? He had to be punished. The answer is, this is not a punishment. This is a consequence. This is what happens if a person gets angry. It goes beyond right or wrong. It just means if there's anger present, then things get forgotten. All the more so, somebody who gets angry for not the right reasons, or when he's not in control. All of us have got angry for some reason or another in our lives, for stupid things that we really, from one day to the next, we don't remember the reasons why we get angry. But we get affected in the heat of the moment, and I'm certainly no exception. And it's not a good thing, because you can see the consequence that comes out of it. And I'll tell you a story, a beautiful story about anger management, which I heard last week at the wedding of the daughter of Rabbi Reuven Stepsky. I had the zechut to be there. And Baruch Hashem, because of my job, I get to hear incredible Divrei Torah. And at this particular wedding, I heard a beautiful Divrei Torah from one of my rebbeim when I was at Or Sameach, Rabbi David Kaplan, who writes for the Hamadiyah every so often. He's written books called Impact. He's an incredible speaker. He had a big influence on me during my time at Or Sameach, and it was good to catch up with him while he was in London. And he spoke at the wedding, and he told the following story, which apparently is a recent event. So the story goes like this. There was a young man who was from New York, and he got engaged to a girl from Canada. And the vort, the engagement, was set to be in the girl's hometown in Canada. So the boy's family rented a car service to take them from New York, drive them through to Canada. Now that is a 10-hour journey. It's not like hopping in a cab from here to Piccadilly. It's like, 10 hours is a long time. So it was a Hamisha car service. So Baruch Hashem, they were in good company. So the Chatan and his parents and whoever family were with him got into this big thing, whatever it was, a 12-seater, 10-seater, and they begin the long, arduous journey from New York to Canada in good spirits. Towards the end of the journey, the family receives a phone call, and the people on the other end of the phone were the Culler's family, the bride's family from Canada. And they presented the following scenario. They said, look, we're really sorry. We're going to have to call the engagement off. The wedding's not going to happen. So the parents were obviously beside themselves. So what happened? For whatever reason they give, it's not important, I don't know. But they gave whatever reason. And of course the parents were very distraught, because they'd rented this car that obviously now the Chatan had to, his plans for a wedding had been scuppered. It's not as if it was like a recent decision. It must have been made a number of weeks before, and literally this is the day or the night before the vort, the engagement party. So it was disappointment all around. However, the Chatan, or the would-be Chatan, the would-be groom, kept reassuring his parents, don't worry, Mummy, don't worry, Daddy, everything's for the best. Hashem is looking after us. And he probably said words to the effect of, better that it happens now than it happened after the marriage. We always hear this when there's a broken engagement. But he was very positive, he was very upbeat. And he was reassuring his parents. He was the one who was suffering, and kept reassuring his parents, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. So says Rabbi Kaplan, who was telling the story, he said, would you believe it? This young boy, not long afterwards, became engaged to the daughter of the owner of that car service. So he had to be in the car with his future father-in-law, I presume it was him driving, because he was so impressed. His future father-in-law would say, he said, this boy was reassuring his parents. He was so positive, he was so upbeat, he never took it personally, he had so much emunah. I want this boy for a son-in-law. Incredible. You see, people think, you know what, it doesn't matter, I've got every right to get angry. How dare they call off my engagement at the last minute? You see, there's a point to everything. He held himself back. It was a wonderful, wonderful outcome. But we don't often see this outcome. We don't often hear wonderful stories like this, but there's always a wonderful story, whether we know it or whether we don't know it. Baruch Hashem, we saw with our own eyes that this had a really wonderful, sweet ending. But a person should take chizuk, should take strength from this story and stories like this, that it's not worth feeling and expressing that anger at the time it happens. Listen, it's very easy for me to say that, because at the time, this story and stories like this will probably be the furthest from your mind. But it's just worth perhaps thinking, just hold yourself back for a minute and just take a deep breath and think, look, do I want to get angry now? And try whatever you can to suppress it even for a moment and to think of the beautiful advantages. We're going to see later, I'm going to share with you a story, an incredible story where a person held himself back, and also how important it is not to react when somebody provokes you. Okay. Now, this week's Parsha talks primarily and initially about Nidarim, about making oaths or promises. You can see here the power of an oath and the lengths that we go to have to annul an oath, because it's not like you can take an oath and then just forget about it. It's a very significant thing, making an oath, and it needs to be annulled either by Talmid Chacham or 3 people, depending on the circumstances. It's a very, very serious thing to take an oath. So we see the power of words. The world was created with words. Hashem created the world with devarim, with utterances. So words are very powerful. Words can build worlds, and words can destroy worlds. You can see Lashon Hara literally can destroy, can be machriv, can wipe out entire cities. It can act faster than nuclear missiles. A nuclear missile will take a number of seconds or minutes to reach its destination. And Lashon Hara can destroy in no time at all. For the amount of time of the speed of sound. I don't know how fast the speed of sound is. It's even faster than it's slower than the speed of light, but it's still pretty fast. So it's definitely more powerful than a nuclear weapon. It can destroy worlds extremely quickly. So I'll tell you a fairly quick story about the power of words and the power of how it can affect and do for the good. This is a Baal Shem Tov story, so any story of the Baal Shem Tov that I tell, I have to preface by saying that there was a great Rav who said that a person should believe the stories of the Baal Shem Tov, but somebody who believes all the stories of the Baal Shem Tov as true is a fool, or something along those lines. So a person should get what is right, get a positive message from these stories of the Baal Shem Tov, but know that they may not necessarily be 100% true, and they need to be verified with your local Orthodox rabbi or authority. But anyway, that being said, this story is very valid, and a very important message comes from the story. So this story concerns the Baal Shem Tov when he was on his deathbed. Now, he had a number of Talmidim who were sent to do important tasks and who themselves became great Geonim, great Rabbanim, great Tzadikim in their own right. One of the people who was present when the Baal Shem Tov was about to leave this world was a rabbi called Rav Chaim. Now, while the Baal Shem Tov was instructing each one of his Talmidim on their different tasks that they were to take on after the Baal Shem Tov left this world, he came to Rav Chaim and he said, your task is to go around telling stories of me, stories of the Baal Shem Tov, and go around and about, go from town to town telling stories about me, and you will get a clear message, a clear sign when it's time for you to stop. But you need to, until that time, you need to keep telling stories about me. And the Baal Shem Tov passed on, and Rav Chaim listened to his rabbi, and he packed his bags and he left, and he went from town to town, village to village, telling stories about the Baal Shem Tov. Now it happened that he he heard about a certain man called Reuven, a very rich man who was very fond and liked to hear stories of the Baal Shem Tov. Now, Rav Chaim was obviously very pleased about this because this was his tafkid, this was his purpose. So he approached this Reuven and said, you want to hear stories of the Baal Shem Tov? I have plenty of stories. I can tell you many. So Reuven said, wonderful, fantastic. Come to me and stay with me for Shabbat, and I'll invite lots of people, and you can tell these stories in front of all of us. Fine. So the date was set. Rav Chaim came to Reuven's house. He was accorded a lot of respect, and they got him to speak on Friday night. And Rav Chaim got up to tell stories of the Baal Shem Tov, and he couldn't remember anything. He just went blank. You know that feeling when sometimes you're about to say something and you go blank and you can't remember. It normally happens when you're put on the spot and you can't think of those obvious things. It happens to be very often. There's some obvious things that I just go blank. I just can't remember it. And then shortly later, or maybe a little while later, I'll remember it. Normally when the thing is no longer relevant. But it just so happens that Rav Chaim got up to speak and he was dumbstruck. He couldn't remember any of the stories of the Baal Shem Tov. So he told everybody, look, maybe it's because I'm tired or whatever. Let me sleep on it tomorrow by the Surah Shniyah, the lunchtime Shabbat Seudah. I'll share the stories with you. Fine. They accepted that. The next day he gets up, ready to tell the stories of the Baal Shem Tov. Everyone's waiting to listen. Again, he can't remember anything. He's so apologetic. He says, please give me a chance. Wait till Sudah Shlishit. Give me another chance. Fine. Reuven, his host, said, let's wait till then. Again, everyone's convened. And for the third time, he cannot remember any of the stories. And Rav Chaim is so embarrassed. Comes to Motzei Shabbat and he's leaving his host's house. And he's beyond himself with embarrassment, and he says, I'm so sorry, Rav Reuven, you've given me so much hospitality. And he gets on the carriage, he's about to go, and he turns around and he says, wait! He turns around to Reuven, wait, I remember one story. He gets off the carriage, Reuven says, what? Tell me the story. So Rav Chaim says, okay, here's the one story that I remember. It happened to me and the Baal Shem Tov together. We were traveling to a certain town and we were going to spend Shabbat, the two of us, myself and my Rav, the Baal Shem Tov, were going to spend Shabbat in this certain town. And of course, when Reuven's listening to the story, he's like, he couldn't believe it. This is the story he'd been waiting for. So Rav Chaim continues, myself and the Baal Shem Tov came to this town, and it happened to be a Thursday night we got there, and we got out of the carriage, and it looks like there's nobody in the streets. I mean, this is a Jewish town or a Jewish village. Where is everybody? They managed to look round. They found a house in the mezuzah. They knocked on the door. Somebody came to the door. And we asked, where is everybody? There's no Jewish soul in the whole city. So the fellow said to us, don't you know? Don't you know what day it is today? We said, well, what day is it today? So they said, this day is Green Thursday. What's Green Thursday? Green Thursday is when the priest of the town, who is very anti-Semitic, he incites all his followers to come and make very bad trouble for the Jews. So we're all out of here. We don't want to be anywhere in sight. We avoid this day, and we hide ourselves. Oh, so that was very interesting. Then, what happens? Then this is Rav Chaim is telling the story. So he says, then the Baal Shem Tov said to me, go and find, and he's telling me myself, go and find this certain priest who's making all the trouble, and tell him that Yisrael Baal Shem Tov wants you to come to him. The Baal Shem Tov wants an audience with you. You need to go to him. Fine. So I rushed off and I went and found the priest. He was there giving a big lecture to all his his congregation. He was telling them this and that about the Jews, etc. And I went out to him and said, "Excuse me, Mr. Priest, Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov requests an audience with you, and he's here in the town, he's waiting for you." So the priest looked a bit surprised and he said, "I understand, I will come to him after my lecture." So I went back, I told the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov said, "No, go back to him now and tell him he has to come now." So I went back for a second time, went to the priest. I said, "I'm very sorry, the Baal Shem Tov requests an audience with you immediately." The priest said, "Fine." He explained to his congregation, "I have to go, I'll be back in a few minutes." And he accompanied me back to the Baal Shem Tov. And the Baal Shem Tov took this priest, took him into a room, and that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's where the story ends, says Rav Chaim, because I don't know what went on between the two of them. I don't know what they said. He never told me. I never asked. That's the only story I can remember, and you should be grateful I'm telling you that story. Now, this Reuven fellow who was listening to the story went pale. He went white as a sheet. And he looked at this Rav Chaim and he said, "I cannot believe you're telling me the story." And Rav Chaim says, "Why? What's so amazing about this story? It's only a story." The Reuven said to Rav Chaim, he said, "Rav Chaim, don't you recognize me? Doesn't my face look familiar?" He says, "No." He says, "Rav Chaim, I was that priest. I was kidnapped when I was a young man. I was taken by non-Jewish captives. I was brought up as a Christian. I went through the ranks. I became a priest. And my job was to cause trouble for the Jewish population. But the Baal Shem Tov kept appearing to me in my dream. And he kept saying, you need to stop what you're doing because you yourself are a Jew. And of course I dismissed these dreams as folly, but he kept appearing to me in my dream. And he said to me, I will bring you somebody who will tell you a story. And when he tells you the story, you will know that your teshuvah, your repentance is accepted. And I decided because of these dreams, I would stop becoming a priest and I embraced my Jewish roots. And I've been waiting and waiting and waiting to know if my teshuvah has been accepted. And now that you've come and you brought me this story, now I know that my teshuvah has been accepted. What an amazing story. What an incredible Maisa to show you the power of a story, the power of words. Then it's not just a happy clappy story that you tell. Sometimes a story can change a person's life. Sometimes a story can tell a person his teshuvah has been accepted. The power of words are not to be trifled with. Now I'm going to mention a little bit about something which I feel is so important for this period of time that we're in now, the 3 weeks. The 3 weeks are not to be underestimated. I needn't tell you what's been happening to the Jewish people within these last couple of weeks. We've had 3 precious neshamot stolen from us, butchered and the whole thing covered up and whatever. It's a tragic time for the Jewish people. And we're in a period where it's going to be difficult to be besimcha. And we have restrictions on us. And we need to try our utmost to connect with Hashem. Now, most shuls are saying Tehillim because of the situation in Israel. And I should add, if your shul does not say Tehillim during this period, I would urge you to go to the rabbi or to go to the gabbai and say to them, look, I feel we should be saying Tehillim. And if they feel it's an imposition or whatever, maybe, this is just a suggestion, maybe go make a petition. Petition them to, I don't think it will come to that because most shuls now, I think they're very amenable to saying Tehillim, especially with the amount of danger that's been posed to Eretz Israel and indeed the Jewish people. So, but just in case our shuls are not saying Tehillim, I urge you, make moves to try and influence people, try and get it going. Say Tehillim. And you should say Tehillim by yourself as well. And you should learn a little bit more. And you should have ahavat chinam. You should have, it sounds like free love. It doesn't mean free love like the people of the 60s. It means free love as in, as opposed to free hate, as opposed to sinat chinam, senseless hate. We should have senseless love. That's what we need to have, senseless love. Love which doesn't make sense. Love for the sake of love. Love for the sake of love is the purest love we can give. Not love which is teluya badavar, which is dependent on something. Pirkei Avot tells us about love which is dependent on something. That love will not last. But love which is for the sake of love, the senseless love, the love which is lishma, that is going to endure. That is what we need to build the Beit HaMikdash. I'm going to tell you now an amazing vort which I read in the name of the Zichron Meir. And it's a vort about a song which we sing on Purim. I mean, the Ashkenazim sing this on Purim. It's not really a Sephardi custom. There's a song called Shoshanat Yaakov. Shoshanat Yaakov, Sahala v'samecha, you know how it goes. The words of that song say, "Cursed is Haman who tried to destroy me, and blessed is Mordechai." Which is pretty obvious because Haman was a bad guy and Mordechai was the good guy. So the question is asked, why did it say, give a reason why Haman had to be cursed? And why doesn't it give a reason why Mordechai has to be blessed? It just says blessed. It says Baruch Mordechai. Why not give Baruch Mordechai? Mordechai was blessed because da 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 da. Yeah? So says the Zichron Meir, it says when you come to curse, you need to give a reason. You can't just curse indiscriminately. But when it comes to blessing somebody, you don't need a reason for that. You want to bless Mordechai? Bless Mordechai. You want to bless your neighbor? Bless your neighbor. Bless them. You don't need a reason. Bless them because for the sake of blessing them. What a powerful, amazing idea. So I think we should take on amongst ourselves, go and find somebody. Could be your mother, could be your friend, could be anybody, and bless them. Give them a bracha. Don't say, what's my blessing worth? Or what do I need to bless them for? You can see Mordechai was blessed for no reason. That you don't need to have a reason. Just give them a blessing for the sake of the blessing. A blessing for blessing's sake. And it's a wonderful thing because it's something which is pure. And you'll see how far that blessing will go. Now, there is a statement which we say, certainly as Sephardim, we say at the end of our Shacharit prayer every day, because we say Tana Devei Eliyahu. And in that paragraph, we say a statement which says, Talmidei Chachamim Marbim Shalom Be'olam. The Torah scholars increase shalom, which is peace, in this world. How is that so? So my brother, Rav Natanel Kalati, should live and be well, and Hashem should give him the strength and the wherewithal to continue doing the holy work that he's doing. He is very fond of telling the following vort, which is in the name of the Chatam Sofer. So the Chatam Sofer says as follows. He says there is a Gemara which says that there are 10 measures of peace which come to this world. I believe 9 of them go to the Talmidei Chachamim, and 1 of them goes to the rest of the world. I think that's it. I need to check that. But what do the Talmidei Chachamim do with these 9 measures of, it's not measures of peace, measures of anger. Right? So the measures of anger go to the Talmidei Chachamim. What do the Talmidei Chachamim do with these 10 measures of anger? Well, even Torah scholars have a use for anger. We just talked about anger management. If a person has to direct his anger, there is a way you can direct your anger l'shem shamayim. How do you direct your anger for a good reason? Well, if you think about it, where does the Talmid Chacham spend most of his time? In the yeshiva, in the kollel, in the Beit HaMidrash. So he goes in, he learns Torah, and he's learning with his study partner, and he's talking about Abaye, and Rava, and Rabbah, and Rav Yosef, and Rav, and Shmuel, and Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Shimon, and his study partner disagrees with him. He says, no, you're wrong, that's not what they meant. And you bring proofs, and he brings proofs, and you're getting more and more furious. You want to know the truth, and you're getting worked up. What happens now? You're getting angry, not with your study partner. You're getting angry because you're getting worked up, because you want to know the truth. And Talmidei Chachamim, when they get angry and they learn, when they eventually close the Gemara, they'll walk out of that study hall with their study partner, and they'll shake hands. They'll say, come on, let's go for a cup of coffee. And they'll walk home best of friends. They're not still carrying the anger with them, because it's anger l'shem shamayim. So they draw those measures of anger which are sent down to this world, they draw them into the Beit HaMidrash. They bring them into the study hall, and they make them l'shem shamayim. Now, once these 9 out of 10 measures of anger are drawn and diverted into the Beit HaMidrash, now there's a whacking great void of anger in the world. So what happens when there's no anger? Peace reigns. You hear how beautiful that is from the Khatam Sofer? 10 measures of anger in the world, 9 measures get diverted to the study hall, and l'shem shamayim, for their own sake, for the sake of the Torah, and therefore you are left in the world with a tremendous sense of peace. That's what it means. Torah scholars increase peace in the world because they remove the anger and they give it a sense of l'shem shamayim. What a beautiful thing. What a wonderful, enviable thing to do. So when you're in the Beit HaMidrash and you're arguing with your study partner and you're getting furious and you want to know, no, this is not what Tosfot meant. He says, yes, that's what he meant. No, yes, no, yes, no. You should know that your anger, first of all, make sure it doesn't spill over and get directed to your study partner. But second of all, realize that this anger, this fire of Torah is creating peace in the world. It's a tremendous thing. And let me tell you a story that I read only today about how important it is to hold ourselves back. It's a story of a rabbi called Rav Abish Frankfurter. Rav Abish Frankfurter was appointed as Rav of a certain town, and he was on his way to that town by train, about to take up his position there. So he was on the train, and he stopped with either the train or the carriage, wherever it was, and he had to stop overnight in a certain hotel. And I don't know if it was a hostel or whatever it is, I don't know what type of system they had in those days, but he had to share a room with somebody else. And this other person happened to be a merchant. It was a Jewish merchant. And he was like a traveling salesman, or he'd been to one of these markets, and he'd bought an amount of schora, about an amount of some goods, unbeknownst to Rav Abish Frankfurter. I had no idea that this fellow bought any goods. But it happened that during the night, thieves had broke into the room and stolen the goods that had belonged to this merchant who was sharing the room with Rav Frankfurter. What were the goods? It happened to be spoons, silver spoons, or valuable spoons. And the next morning, of course, Rav Abish Frankfurter arose early in the morning, he prayed Shachar early, and he carried on his way. Meanwhile, the merchant woke up, he looks in his room, he says, "What? Where's my stock? Where's my goods? All my spoons have been stolen." And he puts two and two together, which we all do. First, we always accept the circumstantial evidence. And he says, "It must be that fellow that shared a room with me." He had no idea this was Rav Abish Frankfurter, because Rav Abish Frankfurter was very modest. He certainly didn't shout and scream about who he was. So this merchant was furious. He said, "What, that fellow, how could he do this to me? He stole my stuff. He went early in the morning." So he chased him, he found him, caught up with him. He went into the fastest carriage that you could find. He paid the guy double the price, caught up with Rav Abish Frankfurt and confronted him and said to him, "Why did you steal my spoons?" Rav Abish said, "Rabbi Yid, I didn't know you had spoons. I never took any spoons from you. You shared a room with me, you took my spoons." "Rabbi Yid, I didn't take your spoons, please believe me." And the fellow was unrepentant. The merchant was furious. He didn't believe the rabbi at all. He took the fellow, I don't know how he could have done this, but he took him, he tied the rabbi to a tree and he beat the rabbi, if you're going to believe such a thing. And when he beat him, he kept asking him, "Where's my spoons? Where's my spoons?" The rabbi said, "I don't know, please, I don't know. So this fellow got more and more frustrated, and in the end, the merchant left the rabbi tied to the tree and he went back to the hotel to see if he can find any more evidence. Meanwhile, the rabbi's now stuck to this tree. He manages, b'siyata d'shma, he manages to work himself loose from his bonds, and eventually he gets to where he's supposed to go. He gets to the town, and all the people are there waiting to greet him, and he assumes his position in the town, and he gives an opening lecture to all the people in the town, a 2-hour lecture, Torah lecture. And would you believe it? Like all these stories go, there within the crowd listening to the lecture is the fellow who was the merchant who had the spoon stolen. Now, of course, can you imagine the shock and the surprise on this merchant's face when he sees the fellow he tied to the tree and beat mercilessly is standing up there giving a shear? Oy vey, was he embarrassed. So what does he do? Straight after the shear, this fellow hung his head low, this poor merchant, and he decides, "Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed, but I must go to the rabbi and ask his forgiveness." So people had started to dissipate. This fellow ran up to Rav Frankfurter and he said to him, Rabbi. And the rabbi looked at this fellow and he was shocked. And instead of saying, "What? You beat me and left me on a tree?" He looked at this merchant and he said, No, please, believe me, I didn't steal the spoons. That's all he could think of. He had no misgivings, he had no revenge against this fellow who tied him to the tree. All he could think of was carrying on his protestation of innocence. He didn't get furious and say, "How dare you? Do you know who I am? I'm the rabbi of the city, and you had no reason." This was the furthest from his mind. That is anger management. That is how we can come out of a situation, we can come out on top. Yeah, Hashem gives us tests for a reason. And this Rabbi Rav Abish Frankfurter passed the test par excellence. You see how important it is. Chazal tell us, Misha bolem pi b'shas mariva, one who keeps his mouth shut at the time of an argument, he has an incredible power of bracha. You remember that story that I told you? I must have told you several times about the lady who was insulted in public and she went and gave somebody a bracha to have children. That person had children after 25 years of childlessness. It happened to me myself that I was at a wedding a number of years ago where I won't go into the story, but I was embarrassed under the chuppah by somebody publicly, so a lot of people heard. This fellow was ranting and raving for no reason, apparently, and I didn't answer him back. I was actually too shocked to answer him back, but thank God I didn't. And I went and I found somebody who happened to be my son's Rebbe. And I said, quick, Rabbi, I've been embarrassed in public. And he said to me, what? So I put my hand on his head. I would never normally do this, because it's not for me to give blessings to rabbis who were great like that. What am I compared to him? But he was happy for the bracha, and I was happy to give it to him. So I gave him a bracha, and I don't know, maybe we'll see in the future something great will happen to him, and I hope so. But it's an incredible thing to keep your mouth shut, and it takes a lot of self-control. And thank God, I could have reacted very easily, but it was a public place, and my wife was there as well. So and subsequently to that, there was another time when I was also embarrassed publicly, and I went home and I told my wife about it, and she didn't say to me, "Oh, Nebuch, look what happened to you." The first thing she said to me was, "Baruch Hashem," she said. You get embarrassed in public? Thank God for that. You didn't answer? Thank God for that. That's going to bring bracha. Yeah? So, this is my final story for this week's shiur. It's a story that I heard on a shiur from Rav Fishel Schachter. And it's a story about Rav Avadia, Zecher Tzaddik Alosh Levacha. So when Rav Avadia was a rabbi, I think it was when he was a rabbi in Tel Aviv, he used to give a shiur, and there were boys who would play outside, like football, like I think they were itinerant boys. They're boys who were just, in the streets doing their own thing. They would play football, and they had a little wager between themselves. Whoever can kick the ball in and hit the rabbi on the head, he'll be the winner. So it would become a sport. I don't know if it was a daily sport or a weekly sport. Maybe it was just a one-off. But it happened that one of these fellows kicked the ball. It went through the window. I assumed the window was open. I'd be shocked if it was closed. And the ball went through the window and hit Rav Avadia on the head and knocked his hat off his head. So he got a bullseye. Now, this is obviously a terrible thing. I would never advise anybody to do this to anybody, let alone the Gadol Hador. But this young boy didn't know any different. And you would expect Rav Avadia to run to the window and shout, "Who did that? How dare you?" But that was furthest from Rav Avadia's mind. He was not that type of person at all. But he did go to the window. He looked out the window, and Rav Avadia looked and he saw. He said, "Who kicked the ball?" And the fellow had the guts to admit it was me. So he said, "I want to talk to you." Rav Avadia went and approached the boy. He said, "What's your name? Where are your parents?" The fellow said, "I don't have any parents." He said, "Don't have any parents? What do you do?" And he started talking to him. He said, You come to me. Come to me. I want to talk to you. I want to speak to you. I want to meet with you." And he developed, to cut the story short, he developed a kesher with this boy. And the kesher was maintained for a number of years, or certainly months. And this fellow, so the story goes, became a great Rav. Now think about it. Here is a boy. He's in the streets. He's playing football. He looks, what can I do to make trouble? Let's have a competition. Let's kick the ball at the rabbi. Can you imagine if it was anybody else than Rav Avadia, or not anybody else, but it was somebody who may not have had that self-control that Rav Avadia had, who may not have had that vision and that holiness that Rav Avadia had, and would have come to the window and said, "Hey, you, what do you think you're doing? Come here now. You know what you did? You think it's good? How dare you?" And the fellow would have hung his head had his tail between his legs and run off and probably hate Haredim for the rest of his life. Good, brilliant. Or you can be a Rav Avadia and say, be bolem, keep his mouth shut, and only with that beautiful anger management that only he could manage, he came and he turned the whole thing round, and he made a great Rav from somebody who knows what could have happened to him. And it came about through Rav Avadia, and it came about through beautiful anger management. How much more so should we should try, and we'll see success. If we try this And we hold ourselves back when, even if we've got the right to be angry. Who had more right to be angry than Moshe Rabbeinu, like we mentioned in the beginning of the shiur? And even he suffered from this anger management thing, which was only on his level. And we mentioned he was right. So all the more so for us who may very well be wrong when we lose our tempers. See how beneficial it is. We may not see the answer in our lifetime. It may come about in our children's lifetime. It may come about in Olam Haba. Who knows when we're going to get the benefit? But one thing's for sure. If we hold ourselves back from anger and we bite our tongue, not literally, we will see great things from that. Yehi Ratzon, all of us should benefit from the wonderful examples we've seen here from our Gedolim, and keep the anger inside. Not necessarily keep it inside, but keep it under control. Take it out on something. Take it out on something inanimate. Go behind closed doors and go and bash your hand against the wall or something. Well, maybe I wouldn't advise that. Go and scream at yourself. Go and scream at the wall. I wouldn't advise bashing the wall, actually, because you might hurt yourself, and it's not good. Maybe, I don't know, find a punch bag or something. Get one of these boxing punching bags and punch the punching bag. Or play a game of table tennis or something. But don't take it out on the other person. Yehi Ratzon, all of us should be blessed to learn these messages and to keep the anger focused and directed and never against the other person. And we will see Yeshuot and Nechamot. We will see Israel and peace, not just a fake peace, a true peace. The peace that only can be bought with Eliyahu Navi and with Mashiach Tzidkenu. May it come now without any further trouble. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening.